Okay, just having a look over the charts again. What is it? Just 7 past 11 on Tuesday morning. So a little bit of a push early on risk off. So DXY had, as you can see here, had a little bit of a sort of gap up. Nothing massive, but it certainly sort of found that DXY when it gaps. Look at this, 3 points or something, you know, minuscule. But you know what I mean. Generally, we'll get a little bit of a gap on the open. And I'll tend to find that two things of this. One, obviously, these gaps always love to close. So it's always good to take note of these sort of things. So in 2 seconds, I'll show for the relevance of that for tomorrow. Sorry, yesterday. But you'll always see this first sort of push in the direction, whether it's up or down. Generally, you've got a high chance that you're going to see a continuation of the direction of the gap as it comes into the open. But yeah, certainly then we sort of might sort of see a bit of a sort of pullback afterwards and sort of come down and sort of see to close this gap. So at the moment, I've still got my price target down a little bit lower, which I've got a couple of sort of things to sort of line this up with. So the main sort of thing was the size of this channel that it broke on Monday morning. Oh, sorry, broke on Friday, came back up, retested, gapped down on the Monday morning. Um, this has given me a bit of a sort of price target, as we can see, sort of down the same size here from the break level. And also, if you see a bit of this sort of bear flag that was sort of playing out last night, almost got down to this zone here. As you can see, this would have been quite an ugly sort of bearish candle at one stage, coming down to sort of almost sort of clip that price target, but didn't quite get there. So based off the highs from yesterday, after that sort of first attempt to rally on the open and that, and obviously just coming into Europe, we've got this a little bit of sort of falling trend, which it actually seems to sort of come up and seems to be respecting a little bit this morning. So if we do actually see this come into play, DXY come down, close this gap, which is what I'm expecting it to do over the next hour or so. There is a possibility that we get a sort of break to the downside and we actually get this price target level around that, so 103.5 to 103.9 level, given a bit of a touch up. So as I said, the gaps in that generally tend to always sort of close. They're just like a magnet for the market. This was only 3 points, so this is tiny. But yesterday, this was start of the week. We saw this gap down here, and this was 20 points. So quite a significant gap, just sort of certainly to sort of start off the week. So we're probably expecting this at some stage to close, but the fact that it didn't close straight away means that we may be sort of in for obviously a little bit more of a sort of move. So there's a couple of times. Let's see if I can find one quickly. Um, As you can see, there's a small little gap down here. First initial move, came down with it, came back up, closed it, and then bang, exploded back up. So we've got a little gap up over here, bang, moved with it. As you can see, came back down. This was the big one that we were seeing. And as this one came through, this one really took off. That was about 2 weeks or so ago. But nevertheless, we're seeing sort of DXY sort of respecting this sort of falling resistance for now. So got the alert set up here. So if we can come back through those lows, go to look to try and close that gap. And of course, we'll sort of see gold and copper, Aussie, these kind of things sort of react a little bit with it as well. So as I sort of speak, seeing this sort of sell down here. China, which I'll flip over to next, seems to be a very big sort of mover at the moment. They're really trying to sort of, PBOC are really trying to sort of control what's happening with their yuan, just because it has just been so, I mean, it's coming to sort of, as far as I can see, all-time weakness. So they've been selling US dollars like crazy. Yesterday, at the same time as you had that sort of news coming out of Japan, you had sort of China sort of jumping and coming to the party as well. All right, so just back in 2 seconds because we're just getting a pop on everything here. So we've got gold going off. We've got copper taking off as well. I'll be back in 2 seconds. Okay, yeah, just back. Yeah, so has had a bunch of alerts go off. So as we can see, yes, that certainly came into play there. And even just from a moment ago, we can see this big sort of push down. So this is sort of, for me, is sort of firming up this little channel here. We know that buyers are sort of happy to sort of, once we come into contact here, it's going to be sort of respecting this sort of falling resistance. So if we look at the other side of this, it does give us sort of targets down here. But what we want to see with this move is not just a close of the gap, because as I showed with a couple of those other examples, it can close the gap, then reverse and really sort of take off. So what we want to see is this is on a 1 hour candle, and we're only 15 minutes into the candle here. So, you know, when we want to see this really sort of commit and close realistically under this zone here. There we go. Little bit of a sort of a zone just through here. I'd like to see a close down to the bottom side here, just to sort of confirm it. And then price targets are going to be sort of, as we have this one marked out along here. And then if we can break through here, we're going to look for something here, here. So it would give us, as we sort of touch up this falling resistance, falling support on the bottom side for a confirmation of this channel. Beautiful. Yeah, so this seems to be sort of a bit of a push across the board, and that certainly I would expect mainly sort of something driven by again the PBOC. They seem to have been sort of intervening in most sessions. So I'll have to sort of have a little bit of a squeeze around in a moment, just to sort of see what was the actual driver for this. But yeah, we're seeing a little bit of these moves reverse now. If we jump down onto a lower time frame, you can see that it's sort of come off the lows and it's trying to sort of rally back up a little bit. So let's flip over. We got onto copper. Yeah, as we can see with copper, copper's also sort of done that big push up. In terms of, this is quite a low time frame, which I don't really trade for copper, but certainly again, we're seeing this area over here where we've seen the buyers were happy to sort of step in sellers were happy to step in last night. So a close above this zone is what we'd be looking for. Something up around here, then possibly back test, then take out whichever high this could potentially make here. That'll be our confirmation, and that'll be then we're looking up here, and we can start to look across to the left for sort of short-term targets. As I said in my video yesterday, the bigger picture with copper, I believe, is coming into play. As we can see, it's really sort of making use of this sort of triangle all the way through to the end. It did actually sort of turn on the dime. Like I thought might have, as you can see here, I thought we may have got a little bit lower to get a little bit of back and forth, but it really just, with all that news yesterday, so it just sort of took off. So that was a nice little sort of push for copper here. I'd expect a little bit more of a downside in these sort of moves, just to sort of grab some more liquidity before moving forward. So interesting to see what DXY does here, because if we flip back over here, we're going to start to see this. As you can see, it's pushing off its lows here. So it's closed the gap. Buyers, as we know from yesterday, here are a couple of wicks. We know that the buyers are sitting around here. So if they can drive this up, particularly if this flips, then yeah, I think that it's going to be sort of close the gap and then run up here. And you know, we're looking at these previous highs. And then potentially at some stage, as I said, these are targets, these are magnets, these gaps. So that could also be a potential price target for it. I don't think sort of DXY is going to have a major top here, but certainly could take a little bit more of a downside before we sort of see the next major move up. Gold, yep, popped, and as just in line with the DXY, you can see as that DXY weakness, gold sort of came back up here. Gold's an interesting one because yesterday on the sort of move, on the DXY weakness move, early Asia off the sort of BOJ and also PBOC news, we saw gold really take advantage and it came up here. But as I said in yesterday's video, we want to get that close above sort of 30, 31. We've got our sort of alerts up over here. We want to get the close up around this zone. Obviously unable to do. And even though DXY happened to sort of close on its lows, gold wasn't able to sort of muster enough for another rally. So it's sort of detached a little bit from what DXY was doing through our US session last night. We can see here that it's obviously popped in line with that weakness on DXY, but I expect that this may be pretty short-lived as it's sort of coming back into its little zone now. So we're just going to have to wait and see. But as you can see, there's a little bit of a sort of consolidation going on here. What we want to do is get a break above 24, close up above here to be sort of targeting a potential breakout move, which again still remains at that 30-31 zone. What we can see if we go onto a higher time frame with the gold, you really had this sort of big sort of congestion area over here on the way up, and give or take a couple of dollars on obviously the wicks and thereabout, we're just seeing exactly the same thing happening over here. So I think this is very much what, this is the battleground for it. We got the continuation after being in the zone on the way up. So the question is now, are we going to get continuation to the downside? Which obviously I think this is enough to sort of say that we've got a little bit of a trend here. This rally came right up here, as you can see, hit the 61%, came back down. So this is, I would say, you know what I mean? It's either this is the pullback in a further downward move, or this is the recovery and this is the pullback in an attempt up the top up here. But I think certainly sort of once we break this zone, when one way or the other and close outside, that's going to give us targets. We're either sort of going to break to the downside and then we're going to be coming back over here, or we're going to break to the top side and we're going to be coming back over here initially for the next tests. So I think they're the sort of reasonable targets, 45s, or we're going back down to sort of 1890s. Cool. Aussies have, yeah, nice break yesterday, as per the sort of video and call on the weekend, and obviously yesterday's video. We got that nice big break. Look at that solid break, closed just off the highs and that out of the sort of basically it was consolidating for a week. We can see that though, it's really, I'm not a big fan of this channel, but it does seem to be somewhat respecting again. If we can break yesterday's highs, that's the sort of call. So 64.50, which actually, if we have a look at those, 64.50 was my price target from the weekend. And as you can see, it's come up here, it's clipped it, and bang, sold off straight away. So that was pretty much to the point, that one there. Yeah, we're starting to see a lot of these moves reverse now. Actually, if I flip back over onto DXY, yeah, we're seeing this. Let's close the gap. And it's really just sort of decided to sort of push straight back up. Okay, back onto Aussie. Yeah, that's starting to look like a pretty ugly, ugly wick for that push there. So I'd expect a little bit more downside move on Aussie here. Again, this is the move from yesterday, so it's quite strong, unable to hold the top of it. There's a bit of a congestion zone around this sort of mid-teens in the 64 area. So yeah, we can see it sort of breaking to the downside now. So I expect this probably to come a little bit lower. We could maybe look at these sort of fibs around these levels here. If we go back to 64, look, it's not dead, but I'd certainly sort of be a little bit worried for the top side because, as you can see previously, every time it's had these pushes, it's had big, strong push, and it's just failed. It's given up 100% and then further, which goes in line with the overall trend, which is obviously down. So selling into the strength, it seems at the moment, that the market's sort of choosing to do. And we're just going to have to sort of see what happens around. I think sort of if we can hold above the sort of 13-14 zone, then you may have a bit of a chance to come up and revisit the highs here. But line in the sand for it at the moment is this bit here. That's that 64.50. We break above that, then 64.90 is the next sort of price target. All right, cool. And that's it from me this morning.